15 and 21, and they're both this tall. So, like, I have a hard time judging ages.
Oh,
like,
yeah, my
it's
sister's
really...
23 now, and she's like,
Yeah, I'm not kidding when I say they're both this tall. Like, they're this tall. And one of them's a mom. So, yeah, it's the craziest thing ever.
Yeah, they accused her. Aren't you supposed to be in school yesterday?
Yeah, when we were at the Yorktown. When she's supposed to be in school, I was like, I'm 22.
I'm supposed to be in school. It's going to be college. All right, so the thermal that you were asking about, so obviously you should be able to see me in there. I'm the orange, red, and yellow guy. So we're obviously going to be looking for cold spots, right? So again, I'm going to switch sides with y'all just because these cars make me nervous with guests here. So what we're going to be looking for on this are the blue and black spots to be moving on their own. So literally taking shape or moving on their own. Does this capture something every single night? No, but it's kind of a twofold. We're going to be using it as an EVP audio and also as a thermal imaging cam to detect anything that's actually going on around us. The cool thing is there's a blue dot that's bouncing around the screen. It's showing you the coldest spot in the frame at the moment. That's the way I have it set up. So it's kind of helping direct your eye. So when you get your video back, we're going to be splicing all of these little bits together because I'm going to do a few starts and stops just because the hardware is great, software sucks. So if we record for too long, it just banks out and we lose all footage, and I don't want to do that. So again, the blue dot is bouncing around, helping us with our eye. It might not always be in that blue dot, but at least it's a helpful direction when you're watching the video. So you're going to hold this horizontal all night long, just like this, with the camera on your left. So that way you can actually see the screen. A lot of people like to turn it around like this. Nick, do you mean like this? I'm like, no, you need to see the screen. So yeah, people, you would believe the novices again. But with that said, the camera's down here in the lower left, so handle it anywhere over here. Treat it just like a cell phone. It is going to be a little bit heavier because there's a battery pack attached to it. But yeah.
The camera's right here.
Yeah. No, the camera's way over here in the corner. She was fine. I know you're trying to correct her with technology. That's cool. So the spirit box you're going to be using tonight is going to record. It's one of the reasons why I use it. You're also going to have an earbud in.
Okay.
So let me explain the method that we're going to be using the spirit box. Normally, you would grab a spirit box and you're just going to hear white noise all night long, right? Yeah. With all the actual history I'm going to give you tonight and just white noise, you're going to fall asleep. So we don't use it that way. This is actually slowed down on purpose. We're going to be using the radio, the song lyrics, the DJs, the commercials. I want the radio chatter to come through in hopes that they're going to tell us a conveyed message from the other side. So it's a 50-50 shot that I can tie it to the location of where we are, person in history, something going on with one of us. If either one of you is prone to attract anything, we never know what's actually going to happen. That's the whole point of this. So you will hear, if you hear something even silly like, buy a Kia today, I want to know you heard buy a Kia today. So I don't want earbuds back. Those are yours. Earwax is gross, and you get to keep that as a souvenir. So under your twist tie, have you ever used the S-Box before? Okay, so this one's volume button, because that's the only thing you need to worry about, is right here. It's a wheel. So you're just going to control the volume as loud as you want it to go. Most people just operate with just one earbud in, so you can hear me as well. The other thing I'm going to be using, it's kind of like an Ovilus like you see on television. Only I have an upgraded version of a phone app called Ghost Hunting Tools, and it's going to give us those words in the center of the screen from time to time. You guys have probably seen that on television before. The cool thing about this one is it saves the entire list with timestamps. So it kind of helps me direct where if we have something going on here, I know where to listen to on the spirit box, where to watch on the video, see if anything else kind of ties into it. I'm going to clear out whatever last tour I had to do this with and start you guys off fresh because they obviously have their list already. This will just stay in my pocket. I'll pull it out from time to time. As far as those K2 meters, those are very novice tools. I have the new upgraded one. Have you ever seen the new upgraded one? It looks exactly like yours, only it has a little buzzing sound that you can't hear while you're outside. So it's a waste of $10, so don't bother. But yeah, I'll probably put a K2 meter just on the outside of the bag, just so that we kind of have a point of reference and I'm not handling 1,000 things. So Riley, whatever you hear in real time, I will be writing down in real time, so that way it'll be added to your notes tomorrow morning. Get up that little K2 meter, I'll pop it into the side of my bag, so that way we have that point of reference. So yeah, it looks identical to yours.
Yep.
Only it actually gives a little... Oh, the phone's not going to make it go off that badly. it buzzes like very subtly where you can't even hear it. So, but yeah, you already know how to use one of these. So I use these to debunk things first. Then I use the millimeter to actually determine if something is legit or not, because the millimeter is way more accurate. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those before. I mean, we can play around with different stuff tonight if you want. I mean, again, this is your night, so you tell me what you want to do. But we're definitely going to be keeping that spirit box running all night long. But at the same time, like if I see where you're like super comfortable with that and you can focus on that and another device, I'll throw another device your way. It'll obviously give you more data to play with. I have a infrared cam that we've been working with the past couple of weeks. I have the new upgrade. So Ghost Stop in Florida makes a lot of the equipment that we're using. That's where that one came from particularly. But they just designed a new infrared cam. They call it the Phasm cam. It's been amazing. So I've caught like orbs with it pretty much every single night. So out of the past couple of weeks, I would say probably about half of those past couple of weeks we've caught something with it. Not to mention it illuminates everything. I have 10 LED lights on there that we can't see with our own eyes. Only the camera can see them. So pretty cool stuff. Very interesting that we're hearing all this whistling. So if you figured out the volume on that, you got it to a comfortable level. All right, perfect. I'm trying to think. What do I want to pull out? Anything else right now? I think we're kind of good to go for right now. Obviously, this is a lot different than the other tours that you've dealt with. Yeah, okay, cool. Any concerns at this point? Wow, you two are going to be easy. This is too easy. Hopefully I get you to actually start talking to me. That's part of the reason why I gave you that thing. You have to tell me what you heard.
She talks more when she gets...
When she'll get more comfortable?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually what happens. If my daughter were here, she'd be talking your ear off right now. So we actually start here at Big John's on purpose. Just because the place is haunted, of course. So here's basically what goes on down here. Big John's, this is a renovation of what we know of Big John's, because this is obviously an older bar. They just renovated it back into Big John's. But the original Big John's was owned by Big John Kennedy. He was a football player for the 1947 New York Giants. It was his place. He used to sit in the back of the bar and tell the bartender of the cadets coming over from the Citadel if they were old enough to drink or not. One night, two guys come in, they're not old enough to drink. There's the bartender, throw them out. They leave pretty pissed off, and they come back the next night, and they try to steal the cash register from the front of the bar. John sees what's going on, he slams down his beer. Beer goes everywhere, of course, and he gets up and just starts pounding these guys into the floor, beating the hell out of them. A couple of gunshots go off, John gets grazed in the neck, but the bullet lands behind him in the wall.
Like, you're the big boy, but like...
Like wondering, like, where are the people? So anyway, he gets grazed in the neck, the bullet lands in the wall behind him. He gets up after being shot. He's the only one that's been shot, by the way. He goes back to the bartender, tells him to get him another beer, gets the two guys on the floor, an ambulance. So the irony of the story is that nobody died in this building that I know of, but the bullet hole is allegedly still here. Again, this is a renovation. That's what's haunting the place. Even if this new renovation filled in that bullet hole, Big John's blood is still here. That's what's haunting the place. People that sit in the front tend to get a little queasy, nauseous, headache, normal paranormal symptoms. So I bring this up as kind of a heated warning. You have to imagine a lot of people come to this for shits and giggles, and it's a lot of fun for them. So they have no idea what they're getting themselves signed up into. So I kind of have to give them that warning. If anybody feels those things, I need to know immediately so we can move everybody to safety. It gets very real for everybody once I give that story out, because they're like, what the hell did we just sign up for? You know, so, but that's kind of the reason why I start here. It kind of gives me that safety measure right off the top. But have you guys taken other historical tours around here other than Yorktown? Okay. So we had a big earthquake here in 1886. We all talk about it as far as tour guides because it's an anomaly for us. We're South Carolina. We're not supposed to have earthquakes. But this building is allegedly where the first death occurred from that earthquake. A piece of the mantle in the middle of the building that you see there that separates the top from the bottom also wraps around the front of the building. A piece of it broke off, struck somebody in the back of the head, and they say you can see him in the middle of the road in the middle of the night. I don't have any proof of that story. It's usually just a great segue so I can get people to stop thinking about getting sick on the tour, you know, before they get all freaked out on me before we even get started. So, before we get rolling completely, because we're going to go to our first stop, people don't like their cars to be filmed, and people don't like to be filmed themselves. Now, obviously, we signed up for it, right? So I'm going to ask you at the next stop to make sure you keep one of us in the frame. And I'll explain more once we get there. It'll make a whole lot more sense. But there'll be some place of like, Andy's coming. That usually means somebody's going to their car. Because again, I'm taking it to spaces the other ghost tours won't go to because there's nothing to see. It's just they're spaces that used to be something for Charleston. So let's go to our first stop. Let's see what happens. Riley, are you hearing anything? You got any weird phrases? Anything going on?
Well, I heard some words, but I can't focus on your talking and they're talking at the same time.
I know, I talk back.
No, it's okay, guys. It's kind of issues with that.
That's why we record everything.
She gets nauseous when we get in certain places. That's why I was pointing at her, too. She's kind of sensitive that way.
I appreciate that for sure. That way I can kind of keep an eye on things. Not that we're in a large group tonight. So this is normally when I have my full groups of 10, everybody has a different device. So this is normally where I kind of show everybody a little bit more hands-on with their devices. So this is the big red barn lot behind me. So this is where we keep the horses for the carriage rides. They can't hear us, which is why we use earbuds with spirit boxes now, because they don't like the white noise. They will kick that metal wall and scare the shit out of all of us when we're all actually have a full group here. So the only history here is really simple, and I use it as kind of an example to keep us moving along, because we're not going to spend a ton of time here, especially with just 3 of us, because you guys want to hear some actual Charleston history, not only from football players. This is the same red barn that used to hold horses that delivered milk and eggs to the residents of Charleston. That's all I got. 1860s and 1920s. So spirit boxes, we are going to be asking questions tonight, but this is not a Ouija board. This is not television. If we ask, is somebody here? Because that's what everybody wants to do, and you hear the word no, that means somebody's here. But they answered you. So we're not going to be asking yes and no questions all night long. And I think you already have the gist of that. I don't think I have to harp on that whole point. But again, in a space like this, I would normally say ask a question you already know the answer to, especially when you're trying out a new method. If somebody's here, tell me what color the big red barn is. Obviously, we'll be looking, because my phone is running my word list right now, and you're listening for the color red. So she's using song lyrics and DJs to convey messages. The word red might not be there. The fire truck, blood, heart. Those 3 things are specifically red. I would take that as an acceptable answer. However, most of the night, even though we have just a small multitude of devices out tonight, I'm going to require there's going to be something else to verify what's actually happening. For example, if my word list that is generating words from time to time, it's funny as it says here, like as in here, listen. If it actually said the word art on it and you heard the number 40, individually those 2 terms don't mean anything. But Art Faircloth was number 40 on Big John's team. You see where we're going to have to kind of verify what's actually happening around us. Otherwise, I don't believe in coincidences, but at the same token, most people do. So that's why, again, I get the skeptics along with the nods. So kind of keep that in mind. Your thermal imaging camera, again, you're going to try to keep one of us in view at all times. Sometimes it's going to be impossible because we're going to be pretty tight-knit. I'm not going to spread us out like I normally do my groups of 10. So we're just going to stick together. Just do your best to try to keep one of us in view. Keep cars out of view. Keep other people out if possible. And you're going to also try to, the reason I say keep us in view is because of the skin tone. Like, we're going to be the warmest thing out here. It's going to give us that array of color. It's a lot easier to spot a cold spot when there's an array of color on there, because we're going to be 97 to 99 degrees. And I would normally joke to say if somebody else is over 100 degrees, let me know so I can kick them off the tour. But obviously we can't kick her off the tour. So you're also going to try to keep the sky out of view. Try to.
Okay.
I'm going to wait for that to pass. Surprise, the horses are going. The reason I say that is because that blue dot likes to default to the sky because there's no surface.
Okay.
So again, some of these spaces that's going to be impossible. I just like to point it out, like that's why it's going to do that. Like, oh, it's not a cold spot off in the distance. It's the sky. There's no measurement, so it's going to go to the coldest spot possible.
Okay.
So let's go learn much more deeper history than football players and ponies. So what's nice is it's a weekday, so it's like we're going to have the whole city to ourselves. That's going to be the wonderful thing. I love weekday nights just because it is usually really, really quiet. The further and further you get in, the further
You've already experienced a bunch of drunk people walking, sure.
Oh, yeah. That's it. It's not even summertime here yet. So, what was the weather up where you guys come from?
It's actually going to be warm tomorrow. It's going to be like 90.
There's been storms, though, too, all this week. My eldest daughter loves us right now.
She what?
Loves us right now. Our dog is scared to death of storms.
You guys are gonna make me talk all night, aren't you? No, I'm kidding. It's my job to talk. Welcome to another beautiful side of Charleston, ladies. It's a parking lot, so if you guys don't know where to park by the time I'm done with you, I don't know how to help you. Where did you all park, by the way?
We took the bus and we're just taking an Uber back because we are staying at the harbor side, so we get free rides. So
Okay, yeah, if you got free rides, take them. And you have the address of where we're gonna end up at, right?
Mhm.
Okay, I was gonna say, I think that's in your text. So this place used to be something, which is obviously why we're here. This is the Eliza and Charles Pinckney Management Center. So just so you know, Riley, I'm not going to be giving you questions like what color is George Washington's white horse, like what we did over there with the Red Barn. You're going to get the answers from the pair of eyes. I'm going to withhold information on purpose. So that way you can actually have a genuine experience, just so you guys know what I'm going to be doing with that. So who the heck were Charles and Eliza? They had a son named Charles, they had a nephew named Charles. So if we're going to have somebody coming by, so you want to be, Andy's coming, just act casual like you're holding a cell phone. Perfect. So you don't know where they're going. Great. Just going to chill right there. So with that said, they had a son and a nephew, both named Charles. So again, that's 3 different Charleses. Now I'm sure you can see why I need a secondary clue to kind of verify what's going on. That's 3 different people. We need to know who the heck we're talking to. But the son and the nephew were signers of the Constitution for South Carolina. That's a pretty big deal for us, but I hate politics more than you. So we're going to move on. Eliza married Charles at a young age according to today's standards, not the colonial times that she came from. So if you're going to ask her how old she was when she got married, it's not going to be 12 or 14 like you would expect from colonial times. It'll be according to today's standards. I bring this up because Charles was over double her age. Just so you know, like it's a weird age gap between the two of them. By the way, if this guy gives us any trouble, we're going to be gone pretty quick, just so you guys know. There's a couple homeless folks that like to give us tour guides a little bit of a rough time. So I'll alright, we're just gonna move on. So at any rate, let's get back to Eliza and Charles. She married him because her father over in England thought he was dying and he wanted to see all his children one last time. He was trying to bring them all home to England. But she was over here, stateside, and she didn't think he was dying right away. So she stayed put. In 1744, you don't marry for a green card or citizenship because we're not even a country yet. So she did marry him out of love, and her father got better, so she was right. And the dad starts sending her gifts to this space. One of those gifts happened to be the plant seeds of indigo. Indigo is a plant that makes blue dye that makes our blue jeans blue. You're both wearing it right now. That's how we use it today. It's indigo. So it makes your blue jeans blue. It started right where you're standing, but she didn't know what to do with these seeds when she got them. She had to learn from her slaves, which were on the property. We're standing right where the servant and slave quarters were, on how to keep it cultivated in our weird temperatures. It's not always hot down here. Failure to popular belief, right? And I'm from Ohio, so I know what cold is, and it still gets cold down here. Now, with those indigo seeds, she was able to figure it out, move it to a plantation just north of here. She calls her dad, tells him that rice plantations are going downhill, that they can make a killing with the indigo. So, now we have an international businesswoman during colonial times, something absolutely unheard of. That's the business of Eliza. Let's get into the weird shit, because that's why you guys are here. I have to give you a little bit of history before we get into the weird stuff. Eliza was the second wife named Eliza from Charles, back to back. Ironically, both Elizas have a maiden name that starts with the letter L. That's all I'm going to tell you. So if you want to find out which Eliza we're dealing with, so far we have 3 Charleses and 2 Elizas. You have to ask what the maiden name is for Eliza. You can obviously ask what happened to the mansion. It's not here anymore. It actually used to sit in the front of this lot. If we get an answer to what actually happened to it, then obviously we can ask when that happened and hopefully get a specific year. The children, there's more than just Charles. I already gave you him. We can ask what the kids' names were and how many children she had, but that's pretty much it. There's a tragedy among those kids that if we poke the bear, all activity stops. I haven't looked at this little K2 meter in my side bag yet to see if it's actually going off yet or not. Normally we get quite a bit of readings in the space. Eliza's death is where she's really open. You can ask her how old she was when she died, what she died from, where she's buried, and what president was a pallbearer at her funeral. I know that's a lot of questions I just threw at you, so we can play around with them. And again, we're going to stick together anyway. So I'm actually kind of curious on the word list at this point to kind of see what's going on. I already have the word politician and family. Family and home show up here pretty much on a nightly basis. But most of the Pinckneys, as far as the males, they were all politicians. I'm just going to put that out there. So I'm already stoked about that. This is me excited, in case you couldn't tell. I'm not Zach Davies, where I'm going to start throwing you guys into darkened corners. But yeah, the fact that we have politician, I want something a little bit more, but family is pretty much every single night, no matter which spirit box I have. So, let's start walking around. Have you heard anything, or have you been focused on me?
I heard it say recognize.
Recognize. So I'm hearing something, which is good. What do you want to know first? Let's get her working.
How many children did you have?
Nice, easy one to get started. Eliza, you want to tell us how many children you had? So obviously you're listening for numbers.
I heard 5.
You've heard it though. That's a good sign. She's hearing things. Some people struggle with that device.
How old are you when you got married?
There you go. Eliza, you want to tell us how old you were when you got married? We want to take a lap and see what's going on.
Sure.
That way, see if you get any kind of stronger signals anywhere else. This guy. See if we have anything. Getting little blips, nothing drastic. So they've also never done an archaeological dig in this location. So when you're using one of these, you kind of need to know the history of like the grounds to see what's going to be coming up natural and and that kind of thing. Especially if you're going to be in open spaces outdoors. No matter how silly you think it might be.
I thought I heard 17, but I don't know.
She wasn't 17, but I'm still writing it down. Because you asked how old she was when she got married and how many children she had.
Mhm.
So, 5 and 17, both of those would be wrong. But at least you're getting the gist on how to listen to it. That's the point of why I come to this space first to really let you guys loose. And by all means, if you want to put the other earbud in to see what she's hearing, you can do that and still video. That's usually what happens throughout the night because I hand out 2 of those.
You might have to fix it.
Yeah, pull them apart. They're cheapies. There you go. I order them in bulk. I don't need them back.
Or ask it what her middle name is?
Maiden.
Maiden name. What's your maiden name, Eliza?
I heard family.
Said family comes up all the time. Family, home, and house are the 3 most common terms I get out of here. Eliza, tell us what your maiden name is. Thing's pretty cool to watch, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, especially when you start looking at vehicles and like, oh, I know exactly how long these cars have been here.
Do you hear anything?
Went up to 15, which isn't a huge spike for here, but we did have something come up. Now I don't know if you've ever tested that thing like around the house, like you have a K2 meter, have you like obviously put it behind your TV and those kind of things. So the Mel meter, I like to use that one because it's digital and it goes way higher than the K2. The reason why they use the K2s on TV is because they're so sensitive and they have low readouts. So that only goes to 25 milligauss. The Mel meter I've seen spike out at 214 is the highest I've ever seen it. Like that's dangerous levels of EMF. Like that's your microwave running on extreme high with the highest wattage you can buy. Like I've never even seen a microwave go that high. But you know, the reason why they use the K2s on TV is because they're so sensitive and they're low wattage, so they don't have high readings. I like to see where the high readings are. Like that's usually where you get the most kind of activity out of stuff.
There's like a blue spot, like right. Yep.
It's like a piece of metal.
Okay. I was gonna say, is it really blue?
I heard shopping for a new home.
New home. Eliza, we still want to know what your maiden name is. Can you use one of the boxes that I have out here tonight? I know I don't have them all out. You have to imagine, I'm out here 7 nights a week. Half the time my name shows up in these places. Eliza, we're going to give you another minute to try to give us any kind of clue. You know what questions we normally ask. I won't lie, last night we had a lot of, like, I had an act casual, these people walking through. We had a lot of leave. We don't want him here. Like, all of these things showed up last night, so I wasn't sure, like, coming into this tonight, like, into this space where things were going to be lying, and right now it seems like everything's pretty light. What's weird is I did get politician and family, like, right off the top of us walking in here. But, like, last night, somebody come over to me and said they heard, "We don't want you here." Like, plain as day. He's like, and then I looked at the word list that the young lady was using, and it had the word leave on it the minute we walked in here. So I was like, guys, we're going to wrap this one. Like, normally the Pinkneys are pretty easygoing. You know, the first time that occurred, it was actually a disembodied voice, kind of like the stuff you hear on TV. So it was over 11 different radio stations, but it said, "Just leave us alone." Like, it was pretty clear. Like, I wouldn't have to tell you what it said, kind of thing, like what they do on TV. Like, it was that clear. So I was kind of like, all right. So the next night I came and said my piece with the Pinkneys, and I didn't have any trouble. That was like over a year ago. Last night was the first night where I was like, we're just going to go. If they're not happy with us being here, then we're just going to go. And again, I'm not seeing much. So as far as like what you're hearing, what you're telling me, obviously you heard buy a new home. So I'm going to write that one down. We got a couple little blips on the K2 meter. But again, not to discount the location, because this is one of my favorites. It's just a matter of, we don't have a lot going on, so we're not going to waste any time here. So I like buy a new home, especially with the fact that we both heard family. Like, I have it on the list and you heard it in real time. So let's get you the answers. So go ahead and cut your video off. So go ahead and hit that red square. It's coming down one way or the other, and this is also a quiet space because this is a hotel right behind me. And you didn't hear any names at all on there, Riley?
Josh.
Josh. I'm gonna write it down just in case. So the reason I ask for names is because this is one of the first streets we ever had. When we crossed that last crosswalk where that guy just kind of scooted over, that's where the original Charlestown Wall used to be. So, this is one of the first streets we ever had, and I have the full list of residents of every person that's ever lived down here. So, the names I commonly get are Benjamin and John. I don't know if there's a Joshua or not. So, but even with Benjamin, because that's a lot of syllables for that name to be spitting out of there, I'll still get Ben that'll pop up. You might want to just turn your camera the opposite way, just because she's on break and I don't want to disturb anybody. So I'll just kind of come over here. But with that said, Benjamin and John both lived here in 1801. So do I have any other significant information about them? I don't. It's just one of those things where I get the same two names every 6 to 7 weeks. So have you ever heard of the stone tape theory before? Okay, so let me kind of give you an explanation. First off, you're standing on Belgian blocks. These things are made straight of granite. So you've heard the term limestone in short, right? And they say that stirs things up because it comes straight from the earth. Well, so does granite. Especially when it's been sitting in the same spot for a few hundred years. They say that rocks that are pure will actually hang on to the consciousness of memories and then play them back in a loop over and over and over again. So it's almost like we're catching the end of a 6 to 7 week long movie, and I keep getting the same names over and over and over again. 3 years of doing these tours, it's the same two names every 6 to 7 weeks. Unfortunately for you, we're at the beginning of week 1 of that loop, but we did get a Ben and a John last night, so I never know. So again, it's not precise at all, as I'm sure you can imagine. They did do an archaeological dig underneath these bricks. They found some of the clothing and tools and that kind of thing. These people were poor. It makes sense because the other side of the wall would have been on East Bay Street. The smell of low tide would be coming through here a lot. If you haven't smelled low tide yet, it's nasty. It's just like dead fish. That's basically what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the rich people of Charleston are not going to put up with that. So if you notice down at the Battery, the houses are skinny in the front but go long back. Have you guys noticed that? How the houses are skinny in front? So we have basically piazzas on those porches. It's basically a front porch with a door on it. So it keeps the smell of low tide from coming into the house. They open up their second story window and the cool air from the breeze comes in, and actually cool air drops, heat rises. So it's old school air conditioning. It just keeps the airflow going through the whole house. The other reason they kept those houses skinny in the front is because you were taxed based on how much street size you took. So the skinnier your house, the less taxes you pay. Because that's just basically how it worked. It wasn't about the size of the home, it was about the size of your street side only. So we did talk about the Pinckney Mansion site and how it's that broad. They had money. They had Indigo Farm money, and they also were politicians. Not to mention, they're outside the city walls. The taxes probably weren't that bad to begin with, but they could pay them even if they were. So, but again, these people down here, definitely poor. Before people lived here, the Freemasons had a Masonic lodge down here, where this is where the name comes from, Lodge Alley. So, again, we do get terms wrapped around the Freemasons. Obviously, the word Freemason, brick, Mason itself, but we've also gotten the term Illuminati. I can't tell you how many times. First off, who the hell is saying the word Illuminati on the radio? I heard it 6 times last year alone. Second off, why am I only hearing it when I'm in this space? Like, I don't hear it in any other time frame of the tour other than when we're inside the alley itself. So it's very uncanny that I keep getting the term Illuminati, and we've had it twice this year so far, but 6 times for certain in 2021, which was pretty crazy stuff. Again, I like to stagger here for just a moment because, again, this isn't a space where we can ask questions. So what's going to happen is we're going to go to another alley. I can't take you all the way through it like what we're doing here because I've been kicked out. So you guys have the gizmos and the gadgets, blinky lights and noisemakers. It is residential at the end, but when we exit the alley, you're going to turn off your video because we're going to cut through basically a small neighborhood to get to that next alley. The next alley is about dueling. Like, we all tell that same story. We're getting into the more popular areas of Charleston, so you may see some other tours. I doubt it. Normally, on even smaller nights like this, I'm usually the only tour guide that's working. It's the weirdest thing in the world. But again, as we kind of go through this, sometimes I let the spirit boxes kind of direct me on which way, as far as what story I need to tell, because we're getting into a lot of very popular stories. And the one corner literally has like 15 stories attached to it. I think the name's Sebastian. I don't think that's part of the word list, but I'm going to definitely check. It's very interesting. It's different because I actually have a separate phone that I use that I actually hand out, not my own phone. So it's just weird to see how the two, it's the same app, obviously the same database that's inside. And if you know, I don't know what you guys know about the Ovilus from the TV shows, how it kind of spits out a word. There's only 2,048 terms in those boxes. That's how many are in this one. That's why I say 80% of this is going to be bullshit. We're not going to use any, that 80% we're just going to throw away. I'm going to give you the full list because sometimes things on this list are actually pertinent to you from somebody you brought with you. I just don't know. So that's why I give you the full list. The things that I'll find that are relevant, obviously, it gives me the timestamps for everything else. Now it says office, which is totally weird. But yeah, this is an odd space. I love bringing people here because not a whole lot of tourists come here. Not to mention, you're in Charleston. You need to see some kind of cobblestone and get a little bit of history on it. So yeah, let's go cut through that neighborhood. We'll walk slowly through here. Just watch your stuff as we go through. It does get darker and the bricks get worse. So remember, you'll cut that off once we exit.
Okay.
Probably smell like sweet magnolia up here. Nice, yeah. It's already starting to smell it from where we were standing. People are walking by, just kind of drop that real low, because again, we're getting those popular areas. So this is Philadelphia Alley. That's what it's called now. Yeah, back in line. What are you doing?
I couldn't hear over there.
We used to call it Jeweler's Alley. So switch ears. Give your other one a break. There you go.
I'm probably
you might hear
not.
more to that one.
I'm not good at hearing that stuff.
Yeah, it's not an easy job. Not at all. That's why we record everything, because I would say probably 3 out of 7 nights a week, the person I give that to struggles. So that's why we record it. I go over it in the morning. I give you all the markers. So that way you know exactly what you're looking for. Anyway, this is where the duels used to occur for the city of Charleston. It's going to be somebody walking by, so I'm casual. There you go. Perfect. With that said, we all tell the story of a duel that actually happened here because we can actually prove it. Watch the pedicab coming through. Again, they get pretty close to me. Over and over your foot. Won't even know it. But here's how the story of the duel actually goes. There's a doctor that moves down here from Rhode Island. His name is Dr. Joseph Brown Ladd. He moves down here because his fiancée, Amanda, just inherited a bunch of money from her dead parents. She's an attorney helping her out with all of this cash. The attorney thinks that the doctor is just after Amanda's money. So he tells Amanda to get rid of the doctor. To prove that the doctor's not just after her cash, he moves to Charleston. He's going to start his medical practice down here. As he's coming into town, the coachman that brought him into town set him up to be robbed and killed. So it wasn't a very good start to his stay in Charleston. Man, it is dead out here tonight, no pun intended. So we're going to have a person walking by, so we're going to act casual as she comes by. I don't know where she's parked. Well, actually, it's a couple. So we'll say, what's that lady walking around town by herself for? But anyway, with that said, where was I? Oh, so the coachman set him up to be robbed and killed. And somebody walking by sees what's going on. So his name is Ralph Isaacs. So I'm going to stop there because Ralph has the same initials as to where the doctor came from. I'm actually going to push you guys against the wall. How about that? That way I can actually see what's going on. Not to mention we got another group coming by. So just kind of keep that in mind. They didn't sign up to be filmed. You did. But anyway, Ralph has the same initials as Rhode Island. So Ralph Isaacs, Rhode Island. R.I. shows up here a lot. So we'll kind of see what comes up. But I do need a secondary clue because Ralph and the doctor are obviously the two main characters of the story. But anyway, Ralph tells the doctor, you don't want to stay here, dude. He's like, he's got a gunman inside. He's going to try to kill you. So, I got some friends at 59 Church Street. Yeah, go ahead. Or you can just kind of real low it. Like, they don't know what you're doing at that point. Like, even, face it up to point down the alley. There you go. Now they know. They definitely know what you're doing. So, keep losing track of thought. Where was I? Oh, he says, I got some friends at 59 Church Street. You can stay there with some friends of mine. They'll help you out, and you can rent a room from them. The doctor takes him up on the offer, and the two become friends. The doctor's practice starts to take off slowly. He's making his own money, he's proving his point, and Amanda's moving down soon. He becomes known as the Whistling Doctor. Every haunted city you will ever go to has a whistling ghost. It's cliche. Every city has one. Ours is a doctor. It works here. Let me explain. Ralph and the doctor go see plays together, but they cannot sit next to each other because the doctor makes more money. He gets better seats. So it's kind of like going to see the movies with your friends, but they make more money than you, so they get the balcony seats. They talk about these plays on the way home. They go see William III one night. They start arguing over the new actress. The doctor thought she was fantastic. Ralph, not so much. as their argument progresses, Ralph starts insulting the doctor's fiancée, Amanda, back home in Rhode Island. So it gets very ugly, and they go their separate ways. Ralph is from here. He goes to his friends at the newspaper, so I was trying to figure out where the hell that yelling was coming from. He goes to his friends at the newspaper and puts an ad in the paper telling the whole city of Charleston what he thinks of the doctor. It wasn't a very cool thing to do, but the doctor sees the ad, rebuttals with, let's go to Dooler's Alley, we're going to settle this, meaning somebody's going to die. They come down, they take their 10 paces, they turn, the doctor points his gun in the air, and he shoots. He did not want to kill his friend. He just wanted to make the point that he had the courage and bravery to show up to the fight. Ralph has his one shot, and he puts it in the kneecap of the doctor. So Ralph proved his point that he's still pissed off, and he's not willing to forgive. The doctor drops to the ground, but his friends pick him up and carry him back home to 59 Church Street, where he dies 10 days later after refusing medical treatment. If you remember, he's a doctor. He probably tried to bleed it out on his own. They say as you walk through this alley, which is what every tour tells you, that you could hear the whistles from the ghost walking through the alley from the whistling doctor. I want you to keep in mind, if you do go down there with your voice recorders on your phones down there and you want to test it out, that was another reason why I was asking, like, if you brought your voice recorders, if you have it, by all means, try it out, see what actually goes on. I will tell you that every local knows the story, so anybody walking up and down Cumberland or on Queen Street on the other side throws a whistle down the alley. I do it every single night on my way back to my garage, which is right over there. We're going to end over here, so I have to pass the alley in order to get to my garage. So with that said, they also say you can hear gunshots, but I have no proof of that. So I don't have anything other than a few very faint whistles in the background. This is also one of the most picturesque places we have in Charleston, especially here in the middle of the night. You can see how lit up and beautiful it is. It's absolutely stunning down here. So let's get to the part where I got thrown out of here. That's the fun part of the story. This alley didn't always come all the way through. It was kind of blocked off. So that means the bricks on the other side of this alley are older than the bricks on this side. So I used to take my tour all the way through to the end. So at the other side, those bricks are sun-dried from slave children. So basically they had to turn those bricks to keep them baked in the sun. There's a full handprint and fingerprint swipes in those bricks down at the end. Everybody wants to put a spirit box or a K2 meter or something near it, but I treat that brick the same way I do an actual grave. That kid's not staring at that brick in the afterlife. So, but one night, November 26th of 2020, yes, I do remember the date specifically, my group decided they were all going to hang around that brick with the handprints in it, and it was right outside the gentleman's dining room window that lives at the end of the alley. It's a beautiful mansion. He was not happy with my tour. And I was in the wrong, because it is residential. We're not supposed to be down there. So November 27th was Thanksgiving. I didn't have a tour. The next day, November 28th, I get a phone call from the tourism office asking me to go down halfway, like what we're allowed to, or reroute my tour. So I told them I would oblige, no problem. And I decided on November 28th, I don't know much about the story I was about to tell them, and I didn't even believe in it, to be honest, but I told them that up front. My tickets were much cheaper back then. I can't wing it now. But I tell them, yeah, let's go see what we can find out at this next stop. It's new. So, at least for me. Before we move on, somebody hears the name Anne on a spirit box. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. They did not know I was going to be telling them what I did know about Anne Bonny, the female pirate that actually lived here in Charleston. So I'm like, all right, we'll see what goes on. Again, I didn't even believe the story. As we're diving into the location, somebody hears the number 300. I don't know what the number 300 means. I basically do my research the next day, and I find out that Anne Bonny's trial for piracy was November 28th of 1720. I was there on November 28th of 2020. We were there on the exact 300-year anniversary of her trial. So I keep going back night after night. I've read more books on pirates than I care to remember, because I'm a vampire guy through and through, not a pirate guy. But I keep going back. The last location we go to is a hit or a miss. We're going to go to a space in between it from here to there, just so that we can kind of see what's going on. That way you guys can get a little bit of myths and legends from Charleston. But that pirate story is crazy, and the way I designed it was based on the things that were common among the books that I read about Anne Bonny specifically, because it's pirates. Nothing can be told as truth ever. And again, at that point, when I had 10 people been playing with my gizmos and gadgets, at that point I'm like, it's a free-for-all, guys. Have a blast. Ask whatever questions you want. You know what you're doing at this point. You've been with me for 2 hours. So, but let's go up and around the corner. Have you heard anything before we move on? Nothing. You've been focused on me. Yeah, I still got nothing. It says pole, and I know there's a pole right there. So, doctor, unless you're going to tell me what color that pole is, I'm not very impressed with the word pole. So let's go up and around the corner. You can continue reflecting.
Okay. Sorry, I'm...
Somebody was trying to get around us. I heard you say sorry. I'm like,
Oh, I
didn't see anybody coming.
I ran into her.
You're supposed to. You're mom, aren't you? Lucky he's going to stop. One of the things I like to point out is, before we actually chill for a minute, that's the wall to Philadelphia Alley that we were just discussing. But there's a gate right in the middle of it. So what that gate was used for was for the duels. In the event there was a loser to the duel, they would actually bring the dead body through that gateway to get to the cemetery behind me. It was a shortcut. You have to remember that the alley didn't always go all the way through. So otherwise they'd have to carry the dead weight all the way down the Queen Street and come back around to get to St. Philip's Church, which is right here. So instead they created this death gate to be able to bring their dead bodies through so they could go celebrate the winter quicker. So I always find that very fascinating, and I don't think many tour guides will actually be able to tell you what the hell that gate was actually used for. But when you start looking at like the history of specific locations of what these places actually were, things start to make sense when you really start to bounce around and look at these things. Anything heard on your spirit box from here to there? From there to here, rather? Nothing. Boy, you're really struggling with that, huh? Okay, it's all right. I'm going to point out a lot of things for you tomorrow morning when we get through it. So go ahead and have a seat. Let's get you guys to chill. You guys paid me to go to work. I'm going to give you a little break.
There's no one that pees out around here, right?
No what?
No one that pees on these things.
No.
We were somewhere, I can't remember where.
Vegas.
Oh, yeah, I'm like, don't put your back on the corner.
Really?
Well,
Yeah, they pee
yeah,
everywhere.
Dude, we saw like human feces on the sidewalk in Vegas.
Underneath the stairs, even, to
I've
going
been
to,
to
like,
Vegas.
Excalibur. Yeah, don't put your don't lean against any wall there.
Of course, that was, geez, I date myself here, but I was over 20. Yeah, it was about 20 years ago.
Nowadays.
Bad, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't see myself going to Vegas anytime soon. I hate to fly. That was the only place I've ever flown to was Vegas. And I had to because it was work. So, I used to run video game stores, like way back in the day when video game stores were cool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was for work. So, every tour guide will tell you about this, but like they all stop up there. And we're going to go up there once I kind of give you the history of the place, but it's their only show and tell. So, it's kind of like their big finale. I let them have it. So, again, I know it's Wednesday and there's nobody there now, but I still want to kind of give them an opportunity, and if it frees up, we'll obviously go up and check it out. But there's two different sides to the cemetery. So first off, this is the eastern side. So if you're from Charleston, you can get buried on this side. Everybody else goes to the other side. So Charles Pinckney, the husband and the nephew, are both buried on this side because they're from here. Now your 7th Vice President, John Calhoun, he's buried across the street because he's not from here. So that's just fact. You know, they actually shuffled his sarcophagus back and forth trying to figure out where he was supposed to go. Turns out he's not from here. He just lived here for a very long time. So they were kind of confused on the matter. But they all go up there because they're staring at a sign that says there's no ghost at St. Philip's but the Holy Ghost. There's a reason for it. So in 1888, a young lady dies by the name of Sue Howard Hardy. Sue, we just talked about initials with Ralph. Sue Howard Hardy. Sue Howard Hardy. Yeah, very cheesy, very campy, I know, but I wouldn't even bring it up if I haven't seen it and heard it for myself. So take that for what it is. And as many hours as I've been in this location. But anyway, she dies 6 days after her stillborn child. That's the end of her story. But a local photographer in 1987, he captures a full apparition in one of his photographs as he's filming this particular cemetery. It's 1987. He doesn't have the tech that we all have now to be able to determine what's actually going on. So he sends it to Kodak. Kodak can't figure out the picture either. So this picture is like gold for guys like me, and obviously fans for like yourselves. But with that said, it is cursed. So females that hold it, basically in a digital format too, basically your cell phone or a tablet. I'm going to ask you not to touch the tablet as I show you the photograph. Same symptoms like what we talked about, the headache, the nausea, the dizziness, that kind of thing. Pregnant females probably not going to have a good pregnancy, so I'm not going to be the guy where somebody had a great vacation and 9 months later I curse their family. So it's the reason why I say, like, hey, don't touch the tablet. I'll even zoom in on the apparition so that way you guys can actually see it a little bit, like what they're actually looking at. But again, this is why every tour stops up there, is because of this photograph. So this is the full picture that he took. Your apparition is right here. Those are her shoulders. That is her own grave, and then there's the baby basket that's next to her. So again, it's a very odd picture. It's also another scenario where the baby's probably buried with the mom. So just kind of like what we talked about with Baby George at the Pinckney Mansion. But yeah, this is a legend around Charleston. Like, everybody knows this photograph, and that's why every ghost tour ends with it, because again, they can show something. But I am going to get your mindset going on pirates before we go up and check out the cemetery, and then we can get a little bit of footage in there, see if we can actually capture anything. But you guys see the burning gas lamp down in the distance down there? That's the pirate house. So it has a big anchor on the front of it. You can't miss it when you're walking around town. We're on Church Street, by the way, in case you wanted to know exactly where it's at. But somebody lives there, so don't be looking for ghosts in his backyard. He gets pissed. Don't ask me how I know that, but it's, yeah. I poke around a lot around town where I'm not supposed to be. But that's where Blackbeard's men would come off their ships, and they would actually have a place to stay. They'd have a few ladies there, and they dug a tunnel underneath the pirate house going 1 block away to Dock Street Theater. Dock Street Theater at the time was called Planters Hotel. Planters Hotel was a whorehouse, a playhouse, and a hotel. So the whorehouse, we're talking pirates. That was the attraction, main attraction. But pirates were also our first stagehands. So they would actually go to the playhouse to go work in between bartering with all of the locals that we had. So the tunnel has just been filled in the 1990s, so that's not a myth or a legend. The myth and legend around that tunnel is the fact that Blackbeard actually buried some of his treasure there. And I'll call bullshit on that, because we all know that that treasure is in North Carolina, not South Carolina. So if you know your pirate history, you know that's where Blackbeard was killed, probably trying to protect his treasure. But there was the other rumor that the tunnel went all the way out to the edge of the peninsula, so that was a way for pirates to sneak in. I find that a little bit far-fetched as well, because that's a long way for a crew of 40 to 60 men, even then, to be digging underneath our grounds. The weird thing is it took us till the 1990s to fill it in. We're below sea level. Like, that thing probably flooded a lot. So I don't want to even think about what kind of damage was underneath there when they were in there, and they probably weren't looking for any kind of artifacts from the early 1700s when Blackbeard would have been coming through town. So, but yeah, looks like no ghost tours are going up to the cemetery, so let's go get some footage of that cemetery real quick. I am able to bring folks up here. I also like to point out that the light on the left-hand side is actually pointing directly at this sign to try to deter anybody from recreating that photograph. Remember what the sign says, there's no ghost here but the Holy Ghost. Yet every ghost tour in town stops right here. So you can't put a sign up like that and not attract people to it. But it is doing that so that way we get light flares. We tried the infrared camera, the Phasm camera, over here a few nights ago. We did get a little bit of a light flare, but it pretty much pierced right through it. Like, it did a pretty decent job, so I was pretty surprised. Taking regular pictures in here, you're going to get a lot of weird things around these front headstones. Even that flat grave right there in front, you'll start to see like the corners light up, you know, just because of the way the light hits it. I get a lot of photographs from my guests, like asking me to debunk things, or, you know, can you take a look at this, you know, kind of thing. And I'm able to debunk them right away, just because I know exactly what they are. I see them all day long. But yeah, every tour comes right here for that specific reason, for that one picture to try to recreate it. But you can probably see the heat of the bars, right? The bars should be red or orange.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's because they hang on to the heat from the daytime. So,
Not all of them, though.
No? I guess not. Finger just got in the way. There you go.
I just heard church.
Oh, I'm not surprised by that. We get a lot of religious terms around here. We're on Church Street, no less. So, gee, why is it called that? Finally, you heard something. First thing you've heard since Lodge Alley.
There's something blue in there, though. Not very big, but...
Where at? Up at the very top there?
Right. Right there.
Let's get you closer. Maybe move in. Put it right against the bars so that way we don't get the bars in view.
Mom, you're putting it right in front of you.
She's alright. Let her do her job. I'll yell at her back for you.
I was trying to angle it a little bit to
Yeah.
see.
I also send all of the video footage to YouTube so that way you guys can watch it however you want to. So you want to put them up on your TV, a tablet, a phone, whatever. I just make it as easy as possible. Alright, so I say we go across the street and go crazy with this Anne Bonny space. Up there, I just like to stay out of their way. I don't have a whole lot of friends in this industry, so. Pretty small. We can go right up to it. Normally I take my bigger group to the back wall so that way everybody can cut through. But I can actually set the bag down. I can take a break now, right? So, welcome to the Powder Magazine. So, this is a very interesting space. Again, I'm going to give you a little bit of history before we dive into the Anne Bonny story. We're here because this is a familiar. I'm sure you guys have heard that term before. It's kind of like using a toy to attract a child ghost, just something they would be familiar with. This building was around the same time frame as when Anne Bonny was here. So, what is this place? This is the Gunpowder Magazine. Those are not crosses that you guys were seeing on the side of the building. Those are earthquake bolts. If you don't know what earthquake bolts are, they're basically turnbuckles. So if we have another earthquake like what we did in 1886, you can grab those turnbuckles and twist them, and it's supposed to straighten the building back up again by tightening it up. It's a great idea, it just doesn't work. I know you're like trying to put the mechanics in your brain. I can see the wheels spinning, but yeah, it's a dumb idea. The reason I bring these up is because this is the first set of earthquake bolts that they ever put in Charleston. Reason being is this is the oldest government building in South Carolina. Notice I said government building. It's not the oldest building, government building. So it was finished in 1713, and it took 10 years to build this place. Does that sound like our government, 10 years, small building? No, not at all. So, but anyway, we talked about those Charlestown walls earlier. Where that garage is sitting right now, that's where the wall stood. So it went up past the Powder Magazine and then started going to my right, south, towards the battery. So the reason they did that is because it put the powder magazine into the corners of the walls on purpose. It's still in the fortification. So if it gets attacked from a Revolutionary warship or a pirate ship, I know history can be long and boring, but I have to give it to you. Otherwise, you don't know what the hell you're looking for. But the water's down this way. So if it gets attacked, those cannonballs are going to have a hard time getting through the 32-inch thick walls because that's how thick they are. But let's pretend that they do. In those red shingles that you guys see, probably better angle over here, those clay shingles, there's sand underneath those shingles that was put there purposely. So if it got attacked, with the explosion, the sand would go up in the air and then fall to put out the fire of the gunpowder. That's a great idea that doesn't work either. So the sand is still there, and that's only because sand doesn't disintegrate, but it's literally been there since the early 1700s. So they had to do some repairs on this place in the 1990s and found that the sand was still intact. So it's very interesting. The reason we know that that theory doesn't work is because there was another powder magazine closer to the battery. It did get attacked because the peninsula gets skinnier, much closer to the water. The sand went up in the air, the building burned to the ground. It doesn't exist. This one's just never been hit before. It did serve in 7 different wars, though. The Civil War was its last servant, obviously 1861 to 64. So kind of put that in your mind frame. It's a museum now, so if you're into old war-timey stuff, like this is a great place. It shows all the old artillery and the uniforms and that kind of thing. It's a pretty cool place. It's a great $5 to spend when you need to get out of the heat or the cold that we have here. So, the reason I'm here, like I said, it took 10 years to build. Our story actually begins in the middle of its construction. So, this story has a lot of twists, so try to follow me if you can. I will slow down when it needed. In 1708, a young lady moves here by the name of Anne Cormack. She's with her father and his mistress. The mistress is her mother. Are you with me so far? Okay. The 3 of them are running away from his wife. That's where it gets a little twisty. Riley, you got it?
Yep.
Okay. So, dude's married, but he has an affair. They have a child, and now the 3 of them are running away from the wife. Okay, got it. I just want to make sure. I usually slow down there, because if I say it too fast, everybody looks at me like, what? So, they land in Georgetown. That's just north of here. So the dad buys a plantation, and mom dies pretty quickly. So that means he has to send young Anne down to Charlestown to be able to sell anything from the plantation to keep things afloat. Now, Anne back home in Ireland, like, she was kind of a badass. They say she killed one of her servants when she was only like 10 or 12 years old with a knife to the belly. Like, just want to, yeah, that look of shock is exactly what I'm looking for. She's like, really? Yeah, the chick was 12 years old killing her servants. But anyway, we're going to fast forward. This building's done in 1715, pirates are coming through town. Anne is stoked. She falls in love pretty quickly. The guy she falls in love with, his name is James Bonney. You already see where this is going because I already mentioned her name several times tonight. Dad doesn't approve because he's a filthy pirate, but they run away to Jamaica, they get married, Anne Cormack becomes Anne Bonney, your most famous female pirate of the Golden Age. Her career started right where we're standing. So, when they get there, James Bonney, her new husband, is not Captain Jack Sparrow, like she was hoping for. He is basically a coward. He's a privateer. He's a spy for the British. This is not who she wants. A few years later, she falls in love again. The next guy, we're on guy number 2, I'll keep track because there are a couple of them. Guy number 2 turns out to be John Rackham, aka Calico Jack. Much cooler name. Yes, this is the Jack that they based Captain Jack Sparrow off of. Just so you know, you can go home and look him up. Pretty cool dude, but he has his own ship, and Anne wants to be part of it. Can't put a girl on a pirate crew. Girls curse pirate ships. So he makes a deal with her. If you dress like a guy and hide your gender, you can be a female in my quarters. He's the captain. Of course that's going to work that way. She's okay with the cross-dressing bit because Dad used to hide her as a boy back home in Ireland and call her Andy to keep her away from his wife. So she's okay, whatever. She's going to be a pirate. She's stoked. Being a female in his quarters, let's put 2 and 2 together. She's eventually going to get pregnant. You cannot have a pregnant pirate dude on the crew, right? So somebody's going to figure out that she's a girl. He drops her off in Cuba to go have the baby with some friends of his. They're going to help her out, and she can come back later, and then her and Jack will figure out what to do with this baby once she's all done with birthing him. So, she goes and has the baby, but she comes back with no child. We have no idea what happened to the child. She's also dressed like a girl. This makes Jack pretty angry. Now, while Anne was away giving birth to his child, Jack captured another pirate crew, and they're down below deck. And now that she knows that Jack is mad because she's dressed like a girl, she's going to go flirting with that pirate crew to make Jack even more mad, because that's who she is. We're on guy number 3. Guy number 3 turns out to be a female dressed like a guy to be part of the pirate crew that Calico Jack just captured. So now we have, yes, 2 ladies dressed as males, trying to be pirates, trying to get their freedom. This young lady's name was Mary Read. Sorry, your look of like, hang on, let me put that together in my mind was kind of funny. So you threw me off guard. But with that said, her name was Mary Read. The 2 become friends, possibly lovers. We'll never know for certain. And Mary becomes part of the crew with her. The British find out where they are. They send their entire fleet of ships to come take down one pirate ship. Anne and Mary are the only two not drunk enough to come up and fight with their one-bullet flintlocks. Now, obviously, going against a whole fleet of ships, they're going to get taken. So as they're being arrested, Anne looks at her bow and captain, Jack, and says, "You should have fought like a man instead of being hanged like a dog." The word dog being a prominent spirit box term that shows up here often. The judge wants to see the two men that fought back so valiantly on their own after he tries and hang Calico Jack and the drunken pirates that wouldn't come up and fight. The two ladies go in front, trying to save themselves, so they reveal their gender. He doesn't care that they're female. They're still pirates. He's still going to hang them. "We plead our bellies," was the last thing they said, both claiming to be pregnant. You can't hang a pregnant woman in 1720. It's illegal. So he sends them both back to jail and delays the hanging. Dad is still here in Charlestown area with all of his Irish money. He bails out Anne. She comes back home, remarries. That's guy number 4. Yes, we're going to count Mary Read, but it's also husband number 2. She was only married to James Bonney prior to this. So, has 4 children, dies at the age of 84. Yes, I know, all of my stories end in death. As far as Mary Read goes, she died a year later in 1721 from whatever pirates die from in a Jamaican jail. So use your imagination. Scurvious and bumpy and gross and whatever else you want to come up with. And we're going to hang out here for probably about 8-10 minutes, depending on what kind of activities is actually going to come out of it. But I did leave 2 questions out on purpose, just because when I have my groups of 10, this way they have something to get started with. I'm not going to give you a whole plethora of questions like what we did at the Pinckney Mansion site. So the 2 things I left out are the name of Anne Bonny's parents. That's the father and the mistress. And I left out the name of Jack's ship on purpose, so that way we can at least have something to get started with. Everything else you want to ask is fair game. I did tell you that you guys would probably find this very interesting. At the beginning of the tour, I told you people get headaches, and I've had people pass out on the tour and that kind of thing. This part is where it's actually relevant to the story. So, back in September, it was a nice cool night, just like this. I bring my team to the back ivy wall over there, and the kid next to me goes white as a ghost, and he starts to drop. I catch him by his armpit, and before he hits his head on the ground, his boyfriend picks him up from the other side of him, and we bring him over here. I send the boyfriend to those vending machines, go get a bottle of water. He comes back, the dude's feeling better. I then tell the story, so they have no idea what's going on with this story yet. After I separate everybody to go have fun with their devices, the 2 kids pull me aside, and they say, "We have to tell you something." I'm like, "What's going on?" "We are 2 transgender males," meaning I had 2 females dressed as males, just like Anne and Mary in the story on the tour. So it made sense to them as to why one of them felt very faint the minute we walked into the space, and he said he was feeling fine through the entire tour up until we reached here. So that's why I give the heated warning. Granted, that was pretty recent, back in September. I mean, I've been doing tours for 3 years, and the first time a witch or a psychic, actually, I can't remember which one she was, she passed out at the Pinckney Mansion. I was in CPR class the next day, because I'm like, if I'm going to be doing this, obviously I got to make sure I'm prepared. So I keep a first aid kit, I'm CPR trained, like the whole 9. Like, I always make sure we're safety first. Have you heard anything, or are you still focused on me? You got to shut me up every once in a while.
No, I haven't heard anything. Nothing's really.
Okay. We don't get a whole lot of EMF in this location, so I mean, I'll bring it out from time to time just to kind of see what's going on. But we'll see what's going on with this word list. It's totally weird. I got a name. Must have been when we were across the street over at the cemetery. So it'd be Greg, 2 G's. So it looks like Gregaga. So I don't know who that is, but that's a very specific spelling. Door, clock. I'm wondering if the door is relevant to the gate that we were talking about. We got the word stone, but that would have been while we were over, looks like by the Philadelphia alley. I would expect brick before stone, because that's not cobblestone down there, it's actual brick. But yeah, this list is actually pretty light tonight. I was pretty excited at the beginning because we had, politician, family, elect. What's funny is there was a certain amount of elections that the Pinckneys were in. Oh, I think it was 5. Didn't you hear the number 5? So Thomas and Charles, the sons of Eliza, between the 2 of them, were in 5 different presidential elections. Charles being in 4 of those, Thomas being in 1. So I'm wondering if... Yeah, it just seems very weird. very vague clues tonight is basically what I'm getting to. Again, it's kind of a stretch, but I think if it said elections, I would be more convinced. Is that a cat?
No, I think it's his dog.
Oh. Oh, yeah, it's the dogs. Yeah, on the wall.
Yeah.
It's like, is that a cat? Because we do get a lot of cats around here. But yeah, we're going to kind of see what you hear out of this. I'm going to walk you guys to the front of the Powder magazine. We'll get some footage of the lot. If you're not hearing anything, again, this is a hit or miss. This is our last stop. So we'll kind of see like what's going on. If I get any clues to something I'm actually looking to add to the end of this tour and take out Big John's, maybe we'll go wander over there. Like, again, I don't pay attention to time. I'm like, let's go see what happens. When I have my groups of 10, yeah, I'm definitely ending here because it took a full 2 hours and 15 minutes or so because they want to keep chatting. Like, YouTube has been pretty quiet, so I don't even know how long we've been out. Any guesses? I'm just curious at this point. I normally don't even pay attention to time. It's an hour and 37 minutes. Look at you. So yeah, I'm usually the guy like, let's go see. Small group. That's why I say 90 to 120 minutes. Yeah, let's walk you guys up to the front and we see what this building looks like.
I was fine the whole tour, but when we started walking over there, my head started getting like lightheaded.
Over where?
Over there.
So, I had a psychic on the tour, I want to say about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks, and he kept seeing something over there by the bushes, like, obviously the greenery. And I've never had any issues with anybody doing anything. Ever since then, I've had at least 4 or 5 people claim to have headaches when I bring them over.
My head felt just kind of weird.
Like
Not
whenever we
headache,
go, like,
but
really haunted places, I'll get lightheaded and like nauseous. We walked over there and we started talking, and I really felt it.
Now, I don't normally put any of my feelings into this. That's why when I kind of scoffed at the dowsing rods, like Ouija boards, tarot cards, all this stuff, I use them all. I just don't bring them to the tour. Like, it's not, because you guys can manipulate it too easily. This I can't deny. But I will tell you, the only times I felt like I've ever been touched have been back over there, and it's always a spider web. It goes right down my arm. And it's usually like right on the elbow. Because normally they'd say when you're touched by a ghost, it feels like a spider web. It's almost like you just want to get them off of you kind of thing. But it's the only time it's ever happened to me. And it's been several times, random occasions. And granted, I'm sure there's spiders over in that ivy and from the trees and that kind of thing, but there's never anything around, because I'll look for it. Like, okay, who's touching me? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's always the same, type of feeling. But that's weird that you said that. Now, how do you feel now that we walked away from it?
It's going away.
Okay. Because after you're feeling a little bit better, I'm going to put you back to test it again. Because that's what I do to my wife. She gets pissed. So, but yeah, let's go check out the front and let's see what's happening. To the pillory that's over there. Like, this was never a place of torture. This was never a jail. This was never any of those things. They're just old artifacts around Charleston. And of course they have to go somewhere, so why not put them at the oldest government building that we have? And the funny thing is I say oldest government building because the oldest building that we have, the claim is the Pink House. Now, that's on Chalmers Street over by the old slave mart. So the Pink House is ridiculous. So it's funny, it was when I first started doing tours, I was taking people to it. That's another you can see them plain as day, like craziness. But yeah, feel them, see them, like it's not coming from an air conditioner, it's not coming from anywhere, it's outside. You can feel the circle, like, okay, it's hot right here, it's cold right here, hot, cold, like you can feel it, like that's how crazy it was. But yeah, that one was finished in 1712, but there's no official record of it. So, did you just stop the video and restart it? Is that what you were doing?
yeah, I was making sure it was going.
Okay. Yeah, don't pay attention to the timer. It's all about that circle or square.
Okay.
The timer, because if you flipped it, because I told you, act casual, then that timer stops, and then it throws everybody off. But yeah, they used to do investigations just like what we're doing here. Excuse me. Man, you guys make me talk fast. That's the way it's going tonight. But they used to do investigations here with the equipment that was available to them. At the time would have been the early 2000s, just for Anne Bonny, 2 to 3 hours just here. So I don't know how well that went. Obviously they don't do those anymore. But I've been meaning to come back and talk to the owner to see if I can, do something similar, but obviously with much more high-tech equipment. I mean, I have laser lights and the whole nine that we can set up in there. Like, it would be amazing. But to do one location where everybody gets to use every device, I'm gonna have to charge like $150. It's gonna be in there for 4 or 5 hours, and you're gonna, everybody's gonna want to use a spirit box. I have 5 different types of spirit boxes. Like, they all do something different. I have the laser lights that go really well with the Phasm cam. That kind of thing. Obviously, the thermal imaging. I have different temperature gauges for that, to kind of debunk things right off the top. So, Jack?
There's just one behind that.
Jack is like a blonde cat.
Just stop them right there.
Well, actually, that's somebody's house right next door. So, probably
Maybe
belongs to
their
them. Yeah, it's more than likely. But yeah, they probably have a lot of them. Yeah, let's go back around. You're probably feeling a lot gooder now, I'm sure. She's like, yeah, I am. Now you're going to be sick again. I just got Army here. Army. The guy that the psychics said he saw by these bushes was wearing a blue uniform. That's a Union soldier. It's not a Confederate soldier, which is what would have been here. That's why he was throwing me off, because he was very accurate throughout the entire night. So, as we're standing here waiting to see if you're going to get another headache, I'll show you what some of the other cameras that I use. I think you guys being as interested in this as you are, like what kind of setup I use on the tour, so if I can get it out of here. So this is the other camera that I'll use. So this is the one with the 10 LEDs on it. So again, if I turn them all on, you don't know that they're on until you're looking through the screen. We've got more orbs with this guy. And the way I have it rigged up is this is a battery pack keeping the camera going. So otherwise things drain very quickly. This thing will use a battery in probably an hour. So I have a 2-hour tour. So it's a lot easier to keep this when it's going like that. There's 4 lights in here. The bottom one is night vision. I don't like using night vision just because it draws attention from the other tours. But there's 2 more right here, and then 4 little guys lined up with the lens, which is what pretty much illuminates the whole thing. But yeah, we'll use this guy. And have you guys ever used like motion lasers?
I think we've seen them on like tours. That's about it.
So we'll use lasers because you can't see the laser until something passes through it. So we'll use this camera, and you can see how those green dots like illuminate through there. It's pretty bright. And I have a red one too that gives us squares. So if we find something in the squares, I take the still from the camera, I can put it in 3D software, and the 3D software will give you a full 3D view of what we caught along with measurements. So I haven't had a piece yet that came from the red grids that was actually that the software would take, and I've tried several different pieces. They always come out a little too blurry for it to be able to say, okay, it's this, and give me a full view. But this is the latest upgrade for the IR camera. I've been loving this thing. The rig is the same, except for the battery pack, and then obviously the camera. The old one used to cut out all the time, so every 2 minutes the user would have to start and stop it so we didn't lose any footage. So you had little 2-minute clips, so we'd only end up with like 20 to 30 minutes of video. Now we're getting the full hour and a half to 2 hours, just because we can record for long periods of time now. So loving this guy. but you guys seem like you were very interested since you already had, you know, some pieces of equipment, and you're going to legitimately pretty decent locations. So
Yeah, we want to go to the Villisca Axe Murder House this summer.
I'll be honest, I normally try to stay away from places that are already deemed haunted, just because of, obviously, the field is saturated with guys like me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the TV shows, it just, that's why everybody likes to go to the old jail, is because it's been on TV. That's why everybody wants to go there. You know, you guys have seen the Stanley, you know, from obviously television and hype and that kind of thing, and I like to go to the places death occurred. I mean, look at the Pinckney Mansion. Obviously, it's a big historical piece. There was a lot of activity when I first visited there. I'm like, I can add this to the tour. So that's exactly what I did. The Lodge Alley piece, nobody's going over there talking about the actual history of Lodge Alley. They're going there talking about boo hags and why we paint our ceilings blue. Like, seriously. Like, that's why they go there. It's just not the right thing to do. I'm all about the actual history. Still struggling to hear something? How are you feeling?
I'm like lightheaded again, and then I'm getting a headache now too.
Okay, so that's our time to cut it. So, go ahead and stop your video, Mom.